Doing that for about a year and a half. Came home one day and my house was ransacked and someone broke into it. And at that point I was tired of living that life, tired of having to carry a gun around in my pocket, worried about whether the gun under the couch was loaded. So I wanted to give up the drugs. So I cleaned out my house, I cleaned out all the drugs I had, and I tried to do it on my own. And unfortunately that didn't work, because every night, every day I'd wake up, like today I'm not going to get high, but a couple hours later I'd be getting high. And so I've been battling that for the last 6 months, and then I was on a binge for about 5 days, and my father showed up at my house, and he said, "Are you ready to get help?" And I don't think I really was. I was just out of drugs, and I figured if I went somewhere they'd give me something to help the detox a little bit. So that's the only reason I got in the car with him, and my father drove me to the ministry that's in Dade City. It's called the Lighthouse, and I went there and they said come back in an hour, go home, pack your clothes, and come back in an hour. And I remember my father driving after we went home. I packed my clothes, and the whole time I was really looking for more pills. I was going to try to get as much in my system before I got there. And I took about 25 pills. So I got there, and I'm glad it did. I hate to say it, but it numbed me, because I remember on the ride to the Lighthouse with my father. I'm 27 years old, and that was the first time I ever seen my father cry. And so that was kind of rough. And but ever since I got in here, I still got that enemy. I had that enemy telling me, "Look, this isn't for you." I've seen the happiness on a lot of these boys' faces, and that enemy kept telling me, "God doesn't want you. You know, look, you're praying, he still hasn't helped you." And it was actually last Friday night, Pastor Chuck came, and he said some things that kind of touched me. And I was thinking about leaving that Friday. That's when I was playing it out in my head who I was going to call and this and that. And one of the brothers in the ministry kept saying, "You got to be broken. You got to be broken before you ask God." And he said it so much to where I felt like I was going to break down. He said it once. And that night after Pastor Chuck talked to us, I laid in bed and I was broken. And I asked God, I said, "Please, come into my life. I don't have to take it."
Yeah. Glory!
Since Friday, it's only been 2 short days, but it's most fulfilling 2 days I've had in my
Praise
life.
the Lord.
Hallelujah.
1 Peter 4:8, most important of all, you must sincerely love each other, because love wipes away many sins.
Yes. Amen. Praise God.
This is my first time doing this. I actually just got to the program on Tuesday night. I left jail and came straight to the program. My name's Omar, 26. I grew up, I actually had a really good childhood. Played sports, me and my brother both. My parents both been married over 28 years, 29 years. They've been saved for the last 7 years, so I've been kind of familiar with the Word in the last 5-6 years. Been saved once and baptized, but the enemy has always pulled me back into the world and away from the church. I started using drugs probably when I was like 14, 15 years old, just smoking pot and drinking beer and doing what I thought was normal, but definitely wasn't. At 18, my grandmother passed away, and as Josh was saying, she was the backbone of our family, and kind of split us all apart, and at that point I really didn't care about anything else. Started using drugs. That was the only thing that numbed that pain. And my mom got an opportunity to move to Florida. I'm originally from California, but at that time the whole family was separated, and so we kind of thought it would be a good way for us to all get back together. We came out here, and it was only probably a couple months before I started getting back into the drugs. I was clean for a little while, but it didn't last long. I started working in the restaurant business, and in that business it's kind of a fast life, fast money, easy to go spend it and go out. And so I got tied back up into that. And at that time, the drugs hadn't taken control of my life completely. I was still maintaining. Had a good girlfriend, had an apartment, had a truck, had a lot of things going for me. And then slowly but surely, the drugs started getting worse. Started doing more drugs and harder drugs. And I hurt myself one time out at the beach. And I was working at the restaurant, and this lady had some OxyContin. And I had taken Vicodin because I played football when I was younger, and I had broke my leg, and the doctor had given me some hydrocodone, or nothing really strong. But so I kind of knew what they were, but I didn't know how serious they were. I took one that day, and it made me feel good. So the next day I took another one. The next day I took another one. About 2 weeks later, I decided I wasn't going to take them. And that day, I started getting sick. I didn't know what it was. I asked her, and she said, "Oh, that's withdrawals." Well, by that time, I was already hooked on the pills, so I just decided to keep taking them. I went from taking one a day to taking anywhere from 10 to 15, however many I could get my hands on, I would take. And it was pretty bad. My parents had saw that I was getting bad into the pills. They knew something was going on. They didn't know exactly what. So I went and talked to the pastor at the church, and we kind of set up a little rehab at home almost, where I detoxed for 2 weeks at home. My dad and my mom took some time off from work, and they were real helpful with that. And I got clean. I was clean for almost 2-3 months, and I decided to get out of the restaurant business, and I went to get my barber's license. So I got to the barber school, and it was only a couple months before the pills were going around the school. And the temptation and the enemy was getting to me. And I was restrained from doing them for a little while, but all it took was one thing for me to be upset about or depressed. And I think at that time I had broken up with my girlfriend, and it was that pretty much led me back into the pills. While I was in the program, there was a kid there that he was using crack cocaine, and I had never used it before. But one night I was with him, and I was real high on the pills, and he told me that if I was nodding out. Pretty much what they call nodding out is when you take too many pills, you start to pass in and out of consciousness. And he told me, he's like, "Man, just take a hit of this, and it'll wake you up." And so I did, and that was probably the worst thing I could have ever done. And at that time, I started using the cocaine, the crack a lot. Not so much the pills. I actually had somehow weaned myself off the pills and onto the crack. So at this time, I wasn't taking the pills anymore. I was just smoking nothing but crack, and completely avoiding my family. I ended up managing to graduate from the barber school, got my license, and started working at a shop, but all the money I was making was going towards the crack cocaine. I was maintaining like I did with every other drug, just for that little while until it started to get a hold of me and still started really getting to me. But I ended up committing a crime at 26. I had one prior misdemeanor petty theft. But other than that, I had no real criminal record, which thank God he was looking over me, and he kept me from really hurting myself or hurting somebody else. But I ended up committing a crime about 2 months ago that I'm pretty ashamed of, because it's something I shouldn't have done, but under the drugs, and I don't want to make that an excuse either, but I think it was definitely God's intervention to get me to this point.
Yeah.
But like I said, I committed a crime. I got in trouble for it. Did about a month in jail, and that month in jail,